Good morning, students. Now it's time for your science class. I am your science teacher. Today we will discuss about chapter 13, motion and time. So we already done the theoretical portion of this chapter and also some exercise problems. Now we today we do some exercise problems. So problems exercise C exercise problem C3 describe C3 here exercise problem C3 describe the time period and the amplitude of a simple pendulum. Okay, so what is the time period? Time period is defined as the time taken by the bob or a metallic ball of a pendulum to complete one oscillation is called the time period of the oscillation. Okay, means if this is a rigid support and this is the string and that is the bob, or bob it can tell as a metallic ball. So the time taken by the pendulum to take a complete one oscillation is called the time period. So what is the complete one oscillation? Okay, if this position is B, this is A, this is C, then complete one oscillation means from B to C and back to B. The time, this time taken is called the one oscillation. Okay, so that time period is what? The time taken by the bob of a pendulum, okay, to complete one oscillation is called the time period of the oscillation or the pendulum. Okay, now what is the amplitude of a simple pendulum? The maximum displacement of the bob from its mean position is called the amplitude of the pendulum. So the maximum here is the maximum displacement is A, C, this portion. So this is the maximum displacement. So the maximum displacement of the bob from its mean position is called the amplitude of the pendulum. Okay. Now in the next question, define average speed. What are its units? How can it be measured? So it is already discussed what is average speed and what is its units and how it can be measured. Okay, so it is for your home task. Next, what is means question number 5 C5. What is meant by uniform motion? Plot distance against time graph for a body having uniform motion on a graph paper. What is meant by uniform motion? Uniform motion is the motion in which the object traveled equal distances in equal interval of time. Then this motion is called the uniform motion. If the object travels equal distances in equal intervals of time, then it is called the uniform motion. So plot distance against time graph from a body for a body having uniform motion on a graph paper. So what is the distance time graph? This is a x-axis. Okay, this is a y-axis. The distance, if this is the time and that is the distance, then it is a straight line. Okay, so for a uniform motion, the distance time graph is like this. Okay, I repeat it. The uniform motion, it is a motion by object when it travels equal distances in equal interval of time. Okay, now D, question number D, tick the odd one out giving reason. So number 1, D1, periodic motion, oscillatory motion, vibratory motion and random motion. So here periodic motion is periodically occurs, oscillatory motion is also a to and fro motion, vibratory motion it vibrates, random motion. So the odd one is random motion because it changes its path abnormally. Okay, that is, it does not contain any specific path. Random motion does not contain any specific path and changes its direction suddenly. Okay, so that's why it's an odd one. Out of these three, out of these four, this is the odd one. Okay, now the question number D2, the sundial, water clock, stopwatch, table clock. Sundial, water clock and table clock are the clock which measure time, and stopwatch is measures the time interval. So here stopwatch is the odd one. Okay, sundial, water clock and table clock, these three are the clock which measures time, but stopwatch which measures the time interval. Okay, now question number D3, simple pendulum, bob, mean position of the bob, balance wheel. Simple pendulum, bob, mean position of the bob is related to, but balance wheel is not related here. So balance wheel is the odd one. Okay, now the question number 4, speed, meter per second, speedometer, odometer. Speed, meter per second is the unit of speed, speedometer is measure the speed and odometer measures the distance. So odometer is the odd one. Okay, now 5, question number D5, distance time graph is given. So distance time, the first graph is for an uniform motion and the second one object is at rest, that is no movement occurs here because distance is fixed with the time. Okay, so object is at rest. So this is object is at rest, and the third one, C, the distance time. Here as the time increases, the distance decreases. Okay, I think that is, so this is the odd one. The question 5c, that is the odd one, because as the time increases, distance decreases. Okay. Now the question number E, define the following terms. One question number E1, state of motion. The objects which do not change their position with time is called in a state of rest, and the objects which change their positions with time are said to be in motion. But in the universe, nothing is at absolute rest or in absolute motion. Any object said to be in the state of a rest or motion is relative to a fixed point. Okay, so any object is said to be in the state of a rest or motion is relative to a fixed point, because such a fixed point is chosen arbitrarily. Because if we consider any point outside the compartment, example platform, when we travel in a rail as the reference point, platform as the reference point, then the compartment as well as the passenger in it are in motion. Okay, and in the train, the passengers and I also in a state of a rest. So it's depend on the fixed point or the reference point. Okay, so any object said to be in the state of rest or motion is relative to a fixed point. Okay, now the uniform and non-uniform motion. Uniform motion, when an object travels equal distances in equal intervals of time, this is called the uniform motion. And when the object does not travel equal distances, means it's if travel unequal distances in equal intervals of time, then it is called that the object in a non-uniform motion. Okay, now speed and average speed. The speed is distance traveled by the time taken. Okay, and the average speed is the total distance traveled by the total time taken. It's called the average speed. We generally calculate the average speed. Okay, now the amplitude of a simple pendulum, we already discussed about this. The amplitude of a simple pendulum is the maximum displacement of a bob from its mean position, is called the amplitude of a simple pendulum. Also the time period of a simple pendulum, it is also discussed. What is the time period of a the time taken by the bob of a pendulum to complete one oscillation is called the time period of the simple pendulum. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.